Welcome along to Villarreal after a stunning, nail-biting conclusion to yesterday's race in supercars in the Campeonato de Portugal Velocidade. We're very excited to bring you more action from this legendary street circuit with over 9 decades worth of history. This layout always a challenge. The width of the circuit varies massively. The speeds are higher than your brain lets you believe at times. And it is a truly fabulous venue to go racing. We're going to have 50 minutes of action here in the
César Machado,
supercars.
que ontem terminou a corrida em terceiro lugar com o Pedro Salvador. Ontem arrancaram um pouco mais de trás e conseguiram um pódio. Hoje vão arrancar da pole position. Portanto, a vitória é algo que está dentro dos vossos objetivos.
É o objetivo, é exatamente isso. A gente sai da pole position, o Pedro fez uma boa volta ontem na qualificação, saímos de primeiro e o objetivo é terminar a corrida no lugar que vamos sair. Vamos ver se será possível ou não.
Aqui Vila é sempre um circuito de grande exigência e há a possibilidade de chover ainda durante esta prova. Isso é algo que vos preocupa?
Não, vai chover para todos. Por isso a gente tem que fazer uma troca. Se chover e se a corrida for declarada de chuva, temos que fazer uma troca de pneus para pneus de chuva. E é o que é igual para todos, por isso vamos à luta.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
So getting ready for this race, and we heard there from one of our Speedy Motorsport drivers, Speedy Motorsport, once again here with numerous flavors of GT4 car, as
Estamos com
is
José
their,
Carlos Pires, que ontem ficou em
way.
segundo lugar na geral com o Francisco Abreu, mas venceram a divisão GT4 para o bronze. Hoje o vosso objetivo é ganhar a geral ou vencer a divisão?
O primeiro objetivo é ganhar a divisão, é o nosso campeonato. A geral, se for possível, estamos lá para tentar isso, não há dúvida nenhuma.
E quanto aqui às condições de hoje, há a possibilidade de chuva, isso é algo que vos preocupa?
Não, acho que não. Acho que se chover a sério é preocupante porque é difícil preparar o carro, temos as paragens de 3 minutos nas boxes, mas se for uma chuva ligeira, acho que é algo que se aguenta.
Muito bem, boa sorte e obrigado. E de volta ao estúdio.
As you can see, an all Toyota Supra front row, the number 4 Speedy Motorsport entry and the number 11 Toyota Supra second on the grid. Now that number 4 car will have 5 seconds worth of handicap to consider in the mandatory pit window. So that could be a factor here. The 11 car, meanwhile, on the opposite side of the front row, has no pit stop handicap. So keep a close eye on that, because I suspect that's going to be a storyline. The pit stop handicaps will also hit in the pro class. Francisco Mora and Rodrigo Almeida's Toyota Gazoo Racing Caetano Portugal car. They've got 10 seconds of handicap for winning yesterday. And SMC Motorsports, Luis Aguirre and Ricardo Riani have a Rafael Riani, it should be, but it says Ricardo on the sheet. 3 seconds worth of a stop for them, on top of their 2-minute pit stop handicap. So we see the cars in position. We will take the rolling start here in just a few moments' time. Yesterday we started, or before the start of the race, we held a minute's silence for our friend and competitor Rui Morita, who sadly lost his life in a traffic incident after Jarama. We miss him very much, and again, before the racing action, we want to acknowledge the missing man from our paddock and hopefully He is watching on, as we all are. Pedro Salvador from Speedy Motorsport starting on pole position, then Francisco Abreu alongside him. Then it's Patrick Kuna in the Veloso Motorsport car, joined by Hendrik Still, the teammate to that car, if you will. Orlando Bettino, Rodrigo Almeida, and all Toyota Supra row through 3. Bruno Perez and Manuel Guiao in the Aston Martin, 7th and 8th. Daniel Teixeira is 9th on the grid in his Hyundai Elantra NTCR, joined by Miguel Neves on row 5 of the grid. Andre Fernandez in 11th position, the first of the GTC class runners in his 997 Cup car, joined by Ruben Verquinas on the row 6 of the grid. And from what would have been the back row of the grid, the number 35 Veloso Ligier of Jose Maria Moreros has not gotten underway. Is there any hope of getting that car started? Certainly it looked like they were angling to put it to the pit lane. We got to row 6. Row 7 is Angel Santos in the Petrogold Ligier. He's joined by Vitor Costa in his Monteros Competicios entered Porsche 997 Cup. Michel Fernandez, the 99 car, lining up 15th alongside Federico Formica in his Seat Leon Supercopa Mark II. It's row 8. Row 9 of the grid, Antonio Duarte in the 117 McLaren, joined by the other TRS McLaren, and that will be Stephanie Hobeika taking the start. Adam Fawcett, 19th on the grid in his Porsche 991 Cup car, joined on that row by Rafael Riani, the GT4 Pro SMC McLaren, with a lot of work to do after a issue in qualifying. Well, not an issue per se, but there was a red flag at an inopportune moment, and that meant that unfortunately he could go no further. The red flag came out with about 5.5 minutes to go. He'd not set a representative lap time and the session did not resume. So unfortunately for Rafael Riani, never really got a chance to show his cards for this qualifying, for this grid. Jose Maria Moreros we saw getting pushed into the pits. We'll have to see if Alexandra Aria and Nuno Afonso's 44 Supra is actually present on the grid. It didn't take the start yesterday. Now, Daniel Teixeira had an issue in the TCR World Tour race earlier on today. Didn't see the checkered flag. There we can see the Hyundai Elantra in the back of shot. So that car is present, but let's hope that that it will take the start. I've also had confirmation that it will take the start and do well for Teixeira, I should say. The 44 car is back in the race, says Sergio Fonseca from Race Ready. So that car is out there, but they're not entirely confident, it seems. Persistent issues this weekend. Car 47 has been repaired, Hobeika and Will Hunt. The 17 car struggling with gearbox issues. Adam Fawcett, you might remember, was way off the pace yesterday, and that was in part thanks to gearbox problems with that Porsche, which would make sense because it did sound like it was particularly low in the rev range a lot of the time, and I did comment on that in the race yesterday, and I suppose that would make sense. I understand that Antonio Duarte is feeling a little bit pained today as well after Friday's accident. You may remember that car had a lot of damage on Friday that they had to repair ahead of qualifying, so he's not feeling great, but he's going to try and go racing. We have 2x2 formation at the bottom of this hill. We make our way around the roundabout and then straight into racing action. Of course, we skip the chicane that starts all of the other laps on the start of this race, so there's no immediate pinch point, but of course running up the hill you have those sinuous snaking S-bend curves before the first heavy braking zone of the lap up at turn 6. There is certainly a lot of room for error. These drivers have to coordinate and synchronize to get this right as we get ready to go racing. 50 minutes pit stop window from minute 20 to minute 30. We get started, and it looks like a brilliant launch there from Pedro Salvador, the Speedy Motorsport team principal, back at the helm of a race car once again. And the Veloso Motorsport Porsche has had a fabulous start as well. That's Hendrik Still, the German Porsche GT4 specialist, launching into second place in the early going. He's going to be relishing the opportunity here to start from the front of the field and give this a good go. And he's running second place at what must be one of the most unique, fascinating destinations he has ever raced at. So the 11 car of Jose Carlos Perez and Francisco Abreu at the wheel. He's in third position. Rodrigo Almeida in fourth place in the other Toyota Gazoo Racing Supra. Bruno Perez in fifth position in his Speedy Motorsport Cayman. And Patrick Cunha in the returning Audi R8 LMS GT4. Good to see it out there again. He, of course, is sharing with, well, Mr. Veloso himself, Antonio Veloso at the wheel. First of your GTC class cars there was still Andre Fernandez, although it looked like he had for company one of the Ligiers. Of course, the GTC class encompasses both GTX, cars like the Ligiers and older GT4s, and Cup cars like the Porsches. And Andre Fernandez leading that consideration for the time being, the consummate showman. The top 6 cars overall at the front of the field are running in a very close synchronicity right now. Very little between them. As a reminder, Salvador and Still in the top 2. They're both GT4 Pro entries, and it looks like Hendrik Still is going for the lead here. I think he's going to get this done in the next couple of minutes based on the pace he looks to have. As challenging as an overtake is here, I'd back Hendrik Still to find a way through. Francisco Abreu, Pro Bronze driver, of course. So he's third overall, leading the Pro Bronze class. Will hand over to his bronze element, if you will, Jose Carlos Perez, for the second phase of the race. And then Bruno Perez in the number 3 Speedy car. That, of course, is also a GT4 bronze entry. So that is not Pro Bronze, that's full bronze. And they run 5th overall. But for how long? Because it looked to me there like Patrick Cunha was having a go for 5th place. Did he make the move in the Audi? No, he did not. The Porsche is still just about there in 5th position. Low percentage moves are almost 0% moves around this circuit. You need to get the move done really before the corner, or at least largely done before the corner. Diving back from a couple of car lengths back is almost guaranteed to be a cause of contact. I think potentially we did well to miss some contact there with Patrick Cunha looking likely for a dive there. Audi with its 5.2 litre V10 could pick up some nice speed down this incredibly fast section of circuit. The speed they are covering before hitting the brakes for this corner, and you see in the back of shot there Bruno Perez making way for Patrick Cunha. I think he could tell that Patrick in the 555 Audi was chomping at the bit to go hunting further up the field, and Bruno Perez, realizing that he's got quite a buffer between himself and the other GT4 bronze competitors right now, deciding that discretion is possibly the way forward for the time being. We speak, of course, of high-speed sections. Now, traditionally, the Porsche being as diminutive as it is, particularly compared to the Supra, which always is made to ride very high per the SRO BOPs, the Cayman being so small, having such a small frontal facial area is usually very good at cutting through the air. The car on long straights seemingly finds a couple of kilometers an hour more than anything else. So potentially at the end of some of these high speed sections, that could be where Hendrik Still finds his way through. Up the hill and past the petrol station they go. This fabulous circuit has been through a few iterations. It was a longer track prior to its temporary halting in 1991, and Pedro Salvador finding some lap traffic there. We confirm that the 35 Ligier is back out on the circuit with Jose Maria Moreros after failing to get off the line, but in doing so, we almost had a change of lead there. Salvador was stifled behind the Ligier, and Hendrik still could sense some opportunity here. He's right on the bumper of the Supra as they turn through these fast sweepers, under braking for the chicane. He's not going to be close enough. Someone's drone is flying exceptionally low. I think maybe want to get that up a bit, mate. Oh, and there's some debris down there on the, just prior to the apex of the Araucaria bend, turn 17. Hendrik still tried to carry a bit too much speed through the chicane at the end of that high speed section on that lap. As we saw, he kind of had to take an extra step right to avoid the wall on the outside of the chicane, and that would have cost him a couple of tenths. Not quite made the immediate bid for the lead that I was expecting. I think in clean air he'd possibly have the advantage over Pedro Salvador, and that's no oh, there's been a big incident. Pedro, the Michel Fernandez Peugeot and Vitor Costa's Porsche 997 Cup car, and that is huge damage to both cars. The safety car is out, unsurprisingly, because that is clearly heavy impact to the front of that Porsche with the wall. Someone's dropped their yellow flag. There we go. And is this a replay of what happened? Yes, it is. Okay, not at one of the higher speed points of the track, but that is still a hefty impact, and one can imagine that the Armco barriers have taken a big impact there as well. That is a terrifying incident. Looks like Vitor Costa has opened the door on his own, and we can see that Fernandez is out of the car on his own, and there is Costa getting out. That is a big relief and a testament to the safety of these cars. Costa's Porsche is the better part of 20 years old, and yet still a very safe bit of kit, but he looks at it as I do, and I think probably both of us wondering the same thing. Is that going to be fixable? Heavy impact like that, the chassis will be ripped to shreds, and at the very least it's going to be a long, expensive repair. Unfortunately, it might be worse than that. But the important thing is that Vitor Costa is okay. The marshals really need to clear some of that debris before the safety car queue comes through, just so everybody can make it through without cutting a tyre. They've got about half a lap to do so at the moment, as we can see them on the opposite side of the circuit for now, but yeah, they need to clear a pathway for these machines. Ah, okay, not everybody is behind the safety car queue, and in fact, the leaders are in the situation that I rather anticipated. No one wanting to drive through that kind of debris field and risk a cut tyre, understandably. I have to see then how they handle this, because the safety car will be closing in on the rest of the pack, as it were, as they now ease their way past the scene of the accident down at the approach to Araucaria. In fact, my apologies, that is Araucaria turn 17. This is turn 19, which doesn't have a name, as I see. I've received some additional information. Federico Formiga in his Seat Leon Supercopa, he was into the pits after the first lap of the race. The gearbox gone on the 14 car. That must be a sight that brings these drivers down to earth from the adrenaline high, just turning through the corner and seeing that huge damage. It looks to me like the Armco is just on the edge of shot, so it's hard to see, but it doesn't look like the Armco has been fully breached from what little of it I have seen in that camera angle. So hopefully that is not going to be anything more than just collecting the cars. But if it is barrier damage, of course, it will take a good long while. We'll get another look at it here. Costa, I think, just wasn't expecting the Peugeot to get that good of a run out of the chicane. Tried to turn into the apex of the corner and, well, Michel Fernandez was already committed to trying to get up the inside. Just quite easily done, and no hard feelings between them. Just, I think, both relieved to see each other out of the cars in that situation. So we remain under safety car conditions. Pedro Salvador is your race leader in the Speedy Motorsport number 4 Toyota Supra. Hendrik Still running second in the Veloso Cayman. GT4 Pro Bronze leader Francisco Abreu runs third in the TGR Portugal Pro Bronze entry, the 11 car. Rodrigo Almeida in the 26, the sister entry within the Pro class, runs 4th. Patrick Cunha in the Veloso Motorsport car in 5th position, the Audi R8. And then the first of the bronze entries is Bruno Perez in 6th position in his Cayman. In 8th position is the Daniel Teixeira Hyundai, so he's recovered up to P8 and is just behind Orlando Bettina. And further back in the field, people to make note of: GT4 AM leader in 11th place, Ruben Vaquinas in his Aston Martin. From the RV7 stable, Andre Fernandez leads the Cup class and is the first of the overall GTC runners in 12th overall. And we saw in a shot about a minute ago that he was just ahead of Rafael Riani in the SMC Motorsport McLaren. Riani has worked his way up to P13 so far. Again, we've got this issue of sorts where the safety car queue is split in twain, and in fact about half of the cars, or well, not even half, but 4 or 5 of the cars at the back of the field are following the safety car, and the leaders are trundling around on their own. So at some point, I guess the safety car will have to wave everyone through once this incident is resolved. In fact, that's already what's happened, I see. So the safety car has now collected up the leader. So that has been sorted out. Hopefully the rest of the field due caution through the incident zone. Again, got an overhead look there at what I think is the part of the Armco that had the impact. And it didn't, again, look particularly like it received major damage. So hopefully we do not need to see a red flag for barrier repairs here. We are only 5 minutes away from the pit window here. for now, we are under safety car conditions here at Villarreal.
Estamos com o Carlos Vieira, que ontem teve um azar e acabou por atrasar, tido um problema num pneu. Hoje o Henrique Silva está em segundo lugar e sem handicap está numa boa posição para vocês poderem lutar pela vitória.
Sim, estamos esperançosos. O campeonato não tem corrido bem. Ontem estávamos bem posicionados, acabei por furar na primeira volta e hoje parece que sim. Vamos ver agora como é que acabamos.
E aqui esta situação de safety car acaba por vos favorecer também.
Eu preferia que não, porque nós já estávamos bem distantes do terceiro e depois era só o primeiro e o segundo. Com uma handicap seria melhor do que estarmos agora todos juntos.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
The sad sight there of the Vitor Costa Montelos Competiciones Porsche. Did its job, of course. The damage to the car indicates that the energy was taken by the car and not by Vitor Costa in the cockpit, and that's kind of what you want. You want that front end to break up and take the impact, but still, when you look at it, it just makes you wince, especially if you own the car, as Vitor Costa does. So 2 minutes and 55 seconds until the pit window is set to open. Now, in the event of a safety car bleeding into the scheduled pit window from minute 20 to minute 30 of this race, we do typically delay the pit window opening, so I think we'll probably have a slight delay to the window looking at the situation here. Yes, they are all but done with moving Vitor Costa away and in the process of doing so for the Peugeot, but even then, we have at least one more lap under safety for this one, and the pit window will therefore be slightly delayed. Alexandra Aria has visited the pits early, and apparently it's a retirement again for the Gianfranco Motorsport Toyota, and they've had a really rough weekend, unfortunately. Certainly not the day they'd have wanted. Safety car heads through.
Ricardo, o Bruno fez um bom arranque e vocês têm a liderança da GT4 Pro Bronze, da GT4 Bronze, têm boa posição para vencer.
Sim, estes dois lugares que ganhamos dá-nos aqui uma pequena vantagem de conforto. Sabemos que a concorrência é forte, mas pronto, agora o pelotão vai estar compacto. Vou tentar manter o ritmo, também este safety car ajuda a manter os pneus também em bom estado. Vamos ver como é que corre, estamos confiantes.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. Volto ao estúdio.
Well, another lap under safety car. Pit window scheduled to open in 30 seconds, but as you can see, there has now been a delay. Andre Fernandez there, the Cup leader, the GTC class leader, going through shot. We've heard him red-lighting his Porsche. You may have heard it in the background of some of these shots. Ever the showman, he was doing that on the in-laps in qualifying. He was revving the bejeebus out of his 3.8 litre flat six and having fun. wherever he saw fans congregated, he'd do that on the in-laps in qualifying, and apparently that transfers over to safety car periods as well. Quite spectacular. Again, heavy damage to that Peugeot 308, unfortunately. Sport prepared car. Fernandez and his compatriot and co-pilot Charles Valentini certainly had a little bit of a tall order trying to best the other TCR on the grid, the other car in the TC Plus class, that being Daniel Teixeira, who we see going through shot there, but there was certainly an interesting contender in amongst that kind of top 10 or 10th place-ish area, and a shame that we've lost them from the race. So no indication yet of safety car coming in this time by, but there is a chance that they are able to do so. Did look like operations were all bust and in one working down there, although you can see that it's still far from A1 down at turn 17. Safety car is coming in this lap, says race director Neos Santa Maria, passing on that information. So under normal circumstances, I believe when the safety car comes in, after a complete lap at green flag, and then pit. I think that will be the case here, but we'll see if anybody does risk taking the approach of following the safety car in, but I'm pretty convinced they're not strictly allowed to. And indeed, Neos has just clarified on the messaging system to all of the teams that they do have to pass the green flag before doing a driver change. Ergo, they cannot follow the safety car in here at pit entry. So then we're going to go back to green flag. We're going to go back to racing speeds here at Villarreal. The field now under control of Pedro Salvador, and we are racing once again in Villarreal. Hendrick still right on the bumper immediately, trying to follow. And up the hill they head once again through this incredible S-bend sequence. Very reminiscent of Macau or perhaps Suzuka with walls a lot closer. Fabulous facility that we have here at Villarreal, and we had a brilliant run to the flag yesterday. As we approach the pit window, it's worth reminding you that there are pit stop handicaps in play here in the GT4 Pro class. That number 4 car that leads the race has 5 seconds worth of handicap to serve atop the standard 2-minute pit stop time. The Toyota Gazoo Racing 26 car in 4th position, Rodrigo Almeida and Francisco Mora, they've got 10 penalty for winning yesterday. Aguirre and Riani have 3 seconds worth of penalty in their McLaren as Patrick Cunha goes bouncing across the curbs. In the Pro Bronze class, that 11 Supra that runs 3rd overall, the TGR Portugal machine, has 10 seconds. The Audi of Cunha and Antonio Veloso has 5 seconds, and Orlando Bettina with 3 seconds. of penalty to consider. He's sharing, of course, with Sergio Azevedo. So at the front of this field, there is going to be some significant disruption. And I tell you what, the driver that it does the most for, or the driver pairing that it does the most for, is the one in this Porsche. It's been a solid first stint from Hendrik Still. Of course, we expect nothing less, and Carlos Vieira is going to inherit most likely the race lead. And all of his competitors are going to be notably further back with their handicaps. Both of the TGR Portugal cars are peeled into the pits at the first attempt by the looks of it. Kuda is now in third place in the Audi. And that leaves Hendrik Still free to just focus forward here, pursuing Pedro Salvador. Team boss at Speedy Motorsport back in the saddle again. He will, of course, hand over to Cesar Mercado. Mercado, one of the most decorated drivers in the paddock. 2025 overall champion in the Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade and runner-up in the Iberian standings last year. He was also the overall champion in all 3 championships that encompass the overall Supercars endurance product in 2024. So he's twice in the last 2 years won the Portuguese championship, and it is only the Portuguese championship, the Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade, that is under contest this weekend, which is why some of our regular drivers aren't present, since they have no points to score, and since this is what one would consider a high-risk destination to go racing if you don't have any points to score. You can see the slippery surface flag understandably being displayed here on the approach to turn 17 to the Araucaria corner, with all of that radiator fluid evident on the track surface. The leading pair will do another lap, as will Kuna in the Audi. Can Hendrik Still find a way past before the end of this race, or by the end of his stint, I should say? 2:02.085 is the time. I do think that potentially Hendrik is thinking that Pedro Salvador's pace is more than good enough, and that given Salvador has a 5-second handicap to consider in the pit stop, he can kind of just follow the Supra, hand the car over to Carlos Vieira and still have the lead. But there's probably another part of Hendrik Still, that darned racing driver part of his brain, saying, well, I'd quite like to make the overtake, and I can make the lead bigger if I do. The 777 Ruben Vaquina's car is in. He's driving solo, so no driver change to make there. The pit stop window is set to close at 15:03 and 29 seconds, says Neo Santa Maria. So there's going to be a slight extension to the window since it started late. It's currently not quite 1500, so they could probably do one more lap. I think 2 more would be excessively ambitious, let's say. There are the 2 TGR Supras that have already made their stop. With a 2-minute base time, they've effectively come out a lap down, but in nearly the same position they were in previously. Although they are, I think, in a different order. It should be the 26 car ahead of the 11 now. Or rather, sorry, it shouldn't. The 11 car and the 26 should be in the same order, because they both had the same level of pit stop handicap. They both won their classes yesterday, so they both had a 10-second handicap applied. And it looks like that is the case, yes. Now, I think Hendrik Still has come into the pit lane, has he? The 888 Porsche. Yes, Hendrik Still is in, so is Patrick Cunha. So Pedro Salvador extending this further than anyone around him, as he has every right to do. Car turning in at the top of the hill up at turn 11, 12 and 13, this little chicane around the roundabout. Of course, we saw a big crunch there yesterday for, well, Vitor Costa, who's unfortunately had a weekend to forget. Oh, and that was a big slide from Bruno Perez. Running second place temporarily with the pit window in play, just ahead of Orlando Bettina, who's also yet to pit. And I'm sure Orlando's eyes would have widened there, watching that Porsche waggle its tail up ahead. You see Daniel Teixeira in the back of the shot. He's made his stop already as well. Andre Fernandez is under investigation for cutting that chicane prior to Araucaria and gaining an advantage, so that could be important if he gets penalised for that. Now, everyone who is yet to serve a pit stop needs to do so this time, and race leader Salvador, Bruno Perez, Orlando Bettina have all done so. So we should have a quote-unquote corrected order after this lap. Oh, Andre Fernandez running wide, and that's going to cost him the GTC class lead. Gabriel Cathoilo gets through. I believe that both of these parties have already made their stop. Yes, they have. And so that is a change of lead in the GTC division. They run within the two subclasses, Cup class for Andre Fernandez, GTX for Gabriel Cathoilo. But Cathoilo, of course, despite being a GTX car, he is considered in the GTC standings along with Andre Fernandez. And so that was an important loss of position there for Fernandez. Just to compound things, right after losing the lead in the GTC class, Fernandez receives a 5-second penalty for the previously mentioned gaining an advantage by skipping the turn 17 chicane. So our race leaders should be exiting the pits. While that's happening, Daniel Teixeira gets past Antonio Veloso. Pedro Salvador has just left the pits. Where is he versus, or rather Cesar Mercado, of course, having now taken over from Pedro Salvador, has left the pits, and he is behind Carlos Vieira, as one would expect. So the Veloso Motorsport 888 Cayman is leading now. As expected, with no pit stop handicap, it has assumed the lead. Can Carlos Vieira hold on to it? Drivers that's very multi-disciplined. Believe has done some rallies, some hill climb. And there see the gap. Oh, that's coming down quickly. Vieira was over 4 seconds clear. It's now down to less than 2 seconds, and there's traffic up ahead in the form of Adam Fawcett. Carlos Vieira is going to be nervous here, flashing the headlights, telling Adam Fawcett, please let me through. He doesn't know which way to go. Has everybody made it through there cleanly? There's been a moment as well. Drama with a bumper loose on the Aston Martin of Vasco Oliveira. Yesterday's bronze class winner isn't going to see the flag today, but what's going on in that lead battle? We need to see that, because it looked like Vieira was in trouble. I'm going to get a look back here at what happened to the 97 Ricard Aston. Was it just taking too much curb? Not quite, no. A bit more than that. Oh, and that's going to be a lot of debris, including a whole bonnet down. That could trigger a safety car, and it has. It has just triggered a safety car. There has been no change for the lead, by the way. We saw Carlos Vieira struggling to pick his way past Adam Fawcett, but he has remained the race leader. I think, however, the safety car has not come out in time to pick up the leaders. No. So safety car back out, and that is going to bunch everyone together. That's effectively going to wipe the slate clean from the penalties. All of them will be bunched together. Just 12.5 minutes to go, and I think, with all due respect to Carlos Vieira, given how quickly Cesar Mercado was wheeling him in, I get the impression he might want a long safety car period here. The less time he would need to defend from the Supra, the better.
Colega de equipa de Carlos Vieira, que neste momento lidera a corrida. Hendrik, it was a fantastic stint from you, pressing Pedro Salvador during all stints. I must assume that it was fun for you.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. He's like an absolute specialist here, many years here. I already learned a bit from his line in qualifying, and then I adapted from session to session. Yeah, and I hope next year I can invite him to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, because there I will be the specialist, and then we race again.
Okay, that would be great for you both. But anyway, at this race you are now leading, but the safety car is not the best thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if Carlos now is doing a clever job, and I think he's really clever, so it's difficult to overtake. Also our top speed in the Porsche is not bad, so we are strong on the brake, strong on brake, and strong on top speed. So I expect if he's doing a clever job, even after safety car, he can manage it to bring it home. So it would be a fantastic result in the first year here.
Thank you very much, and good luck. Volta ao estúdio.
Number 16 Supra has had an issue of some sort. Sergio Azevedo has pulled up there with what looks to me like a damaged car. That doesn't look quite right to me. So what's happened to Azevedo, I wonder? Recovery vehicle speeds onto the scene to get the car moved. Safety car is now picking up and controlling the field. So then post-safety car period, or sorry, post-pit window, and now in the safety car period, it is Carlos Vieira that leads this motor race in the 888 Veloso Porsche Cayman. Cesar Mercado running second overall in the Speedy Motorsport Toyota. Then it's Francisco Mora in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Catano, Portugal entry. That's the Pro Class car, so the top three all Pro Division entries. Then it's the Pro Bronze leader, Jose Carlos Pires, in the sister TGR Portugal machine. Ricardo Costa runs fifth as the leading bronze car. in the GT4 division, and he is followed by the TC Plus entry, the Hyundai Elantra NTCR of Daniel Teixeira, who's double dipping this weekend between Iberian Supercars, the Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade, and of course the TCR World Tour that he's also competing in. In 7th overall, it is Antonio Veloso in the GT4 Pro Bronze Audi. Andre de Baich is in 8th position in the Audi R8 LMS GT4. Luis Aguirre in 9th position in the SMC Motorsport McLaren, in 4th in Pro. Ruben Vaquinas in 10th position in the RV7 Aston Martin, and then our Cup class leader Gabriel Cazzoilo, our GTC leader Gabriel Cazzoilo, who also leads the GTX subclass. He's in 11th overall, ahead of Andre Fernandez, who has a 5-second penalty hanging over his head, and that 5-second penalty could be particularly costly given this safety car period. Will Hunt follows in 13th position in the McLaren 570S GT4. That could be an interesting car to watch when the race resumes. Antonio Duarte in P14 in his TRS McLaren. Then it's Adam Fawcett in 15th, and that's everyone left who is still running, I think, because Vasco Oliveira, of course, is the cause of this safety car period, and we've seen that Sergio Azevedo is also stopped out on the circuit. So yes, just 15 left running at this stage. That is not many cars, considering we started with 22, and we're down to just 15. It's been a race of attrition, a race of drama and incident. And there's a lot for these marshals still to do. I think we'd be lucky to get more than 1 or 2 laps of racing in here. Sergio Azevedo will be disappointed that their race has ended. It doesn't
Estamos com Pedro
look
Salvador,
like...
o líder da primeira stint da corrida. Pedro, foi stint de alto nível, sempre com ritmo elevado.
Sim, sem dúvida, foi bom stint. Perdão, mas perdoem, mas tenho que realçar aqui uma situação que é o acidente que aconteceu, o não termos uma bandeira vermelha com a dimensão do acidente com que fomos confrontados. É algo que, ao fim de mais de 30 anos de corridas, eu não pensei ser possível. É inadmissível, é incompreensível, não há justificação nenhuma para a corrida não ter parado e ter tido uma bandeira vermelha. Honestamente, perdemos aquilo que poderia ter sido uma ótima corrida, com uma decisão que, seja qual for a justificação, e eu sei qual é, obviamente vai ser horário do TCR, não existe. Portanto, estar parado na pista porque não há para onde passar e não se ter uma bandeira vermelha, é o registro que eu levo desta corrida de hoje, independentemente daquilo que venha a acontecer, não é admissível.
Mas no campo pessoal foi uma grande performance da tua parte.
Foi uma boa performance, uma boa luta com o Hendrick, um privilégio ter o Hendrick Steel como um adversário. Obviamente que as características dos carros demonstraram-se ao longo deste stint onde é que são os pontos fortes e mais de cada um dos carros, mas sim, uma boa luta. Acabou-nos com a possibilidade de podermos cavar alguma vantagem para o handicap que tínhamos, mas estamos na luta, eventualmente o safety car sair da pista.
Este safety car, no entanto, acabou por ser algo que nos ajuda. Achas que é possível ainda vencer a corrida?
Não sei se nos ajuda, porque neste momento está-nos a evitar de poder entrar na luta quando estamos já junto ao Carlos. Portanto, neste momento estamos a perder a oportunidade de poder lutar.
Outra coisa, o Hendrick desafiou-te a fazer as 24 horas do Nürburgring com ele. Achas que isso é possível?
Posso ir já. Portanto, tenho que treinar, obviamente, conhecer o Nürburgring como ele conhece, talvez daqui a 10 anos, mas obviamente que sim. Volto a dizer, já era um fã da performance dele no GT4 europeu, entretanto percebi a grandeza do piloto que é, e só dessa forma também é que ele chega aqui no fim de semana e tem a performance que tem no circuito do Vila Real. Portanto, isso demonstra realmente que é um profissional, que é um piloto de referência, e para nós é um privilégio tê-lo no nosso campeonato.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
So, some of that was translated for me, courtesy of Sergio Fonseca from Race Ready, as we take another look at this incident. Just too much curb from Aston Martin driver Vasco Oliveira. But Sergio Fonseca, they're telling us that Pedro Salvador, who was just interviewed, was remarking that he would have rather have seen a red flag at the end of that safety car period, or rather in that first safety car period earlier on after that tangle between the Peugeot and Vitor Costa's Porsche. Didn't understand why they didn't just do a red flag rather than a safety car. And he also then referenced the fact that the safety car doesn't help the team here in this safety car period. It doesn't help because Cesar Mercado, of course, was closing in on Carlos Vieira, and without this delay, we might have seen the lead change hands. Also remarked that Hendrik Still is a great competitor. He was felt honoured and privileged to race with someone with as much GT4 success as he has, and regarding that dangled carrot from Hendrik earlier on about wanting to be the specialist and take some of these guys to the Nürburgring, he said, absolutely, I'll come to the Nürburgring. Pedro Salvador more than happy to take on that invitation. 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to go then. We'll need the safety car in this lap if we want to finish this race under green flag. Have we had any bulletin to that effect yet? It was about this point in the lap that we had the bulletin last time. Still nothing right now to indicate that we are going to get the safety car in. You can see that the safety car queue is driving very slowly, and I think that is to try and give us every chance we can to get a one-lap dash here. But I'm not so sure it's likely. We really need to take a look at how the progress is with the Oliveira recovery now to gauge whether it's a possibility. There's the 16 car being recovered. That's going the wrong way on the track, isn't it? No, it's not. Okay, good. So that flatbed is in. What about the other one? There was contact, or there was some kind of damage there, as we saw to the 16 Toyota. Still no indication that we are going to see the safety car in this lap, and we are at the point where we'd need to know. Unfortunately, I think we are just about going to miss out on seeing a green flag finish here, which is a huge shame. Race control, I'm sure, were doing all they could, but unfortunately, this race is going to end under safety car then. One more rotation between themselves and the checkered flag. It will be, so long as they get to the end of this safety car lap, a win for Vieira and Hendrik Still in the Veloso Cayman. Confirmation there that the race will finish behind the safety car. So, the final tour of the day, and it looks like all of our class winners are secure. Carlos Vieira, Veloso Motorsport, set to take the overall win, set to take the GT4 Pro class win. Ahead of Cesar Mercado and Pedro Salvador in the speedy Toyota, and Francisco Mora and Rodrigo Almeida in the TGR Portugal Pro Entry.
Francisco, foi fim de semana perfeito para vocês, duas corridas, 2 vitórias, e no fim de semana em que faz genes, é quase a perfeição.
Uma boa prenda.
Uma excelente prenda e a perfeição para vocês.
Sim, uma boa segunda corrida. Tivemos ali um pequeno problema, o cabo de repartição de travagem que partisse antes da corrida começar. Portanto, pronto, um setback, não é? E depois foi uma corrida com muitos safety cars, com muitos incidentes, acabámos por não conseguir portanto, ter o ritmo que nós desejávamos, o flow que nós desejávamos. No fundo, foi um fim de semana fantástico, mas esperamos que também a única coisa para as próximas corridas, em relação ao BOP, em que o BOP não seja, portanto, dado aos pilotos, mas sim ao carro. E acaba por ser um bocadinho injusto, porque levamos um carro com mais 80 kg do que aquilo que se corre no europeu, acaba por ser perigoso até, e acaba por afetar muito aqui os Toyotas.
Seja como for, um fim de semana especial em Vila Real.
Sim, bastante. 2 vitórias é sempre bom.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e parabéns. E voltamos ao estúdio.
So Vieira there. Or rather, sorry, not Vieira, but Vieira at the wheel of the leading car, making his way through the last corners of the race. It was Abreu, of course, who we just heard from. Teammate to Jose Carlos Perez. They will win the Pro Bronze class. Ricardo Costa is going to win the bronze class in the number 3 Porsche on behalf of himself and Bruno Perez. Teixeira to win TC Plus. The GTC honours to go to Gabriel Cazuelo in the Petrogold Ligier, of course, also winning the GTX subclass. And Andre Fernandez will win the Cup subclass within GTC. Checker flag then should be waving. There it is. Carlos Vieira taking the win here at Villarreal. Vieira still Veloso Motorsport. A new combination for this weekend. Already a winning combination in the Iberian Supercars and the Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade. And look at some of these fabulous cars for the last time this weekend, the fans trackside. Wait for it, he's going to rev it, Andre Fernandez, I'm sure of it. There it is. Thanks, Andre. Carlos Vieira winning the race then over Cesar Mercado. Francisco Mora taking 3rd position ahead of Jose Carlos Perez. Daniel Teixeira 5th overall in the TC Plus winning car. Antonio Veloso in 6th position in the Audi, entered by his eponymous team. Andre Nebeish taking the flag in 7th overall ahead of Luis Aguirre in the SMC Motorsport McLaren Artura GT4. Ruben Vaquinas in 9th position. Gabriel Cazuelo in the Petrogold Ligier taking P10 overall and winning the GTX division ahead of Will Hunt, who is promoted to 11th overall because of Andre Fernandez's penalty that you might remember, the 5-second handicap, the 5-second penalty for track limits. And just looking further down the order at all of those DNFs, unfortunately, it was a race of pretty significant attrition out here today. And there's going to be a lot of teams working very hard to get the car out for the next event here in the Iberian Supercars season. Of course, we've already been to Portimao and Jarama. We will now go into the summer break. This is the midpoint, effectively, of the year. Let's take a look then at highlights from race 2 of the weekend here in Iberian Supercars. Your early race leader was Pedro Salvador for Speedy Motorsport, leading off Hendrik Still, who got a good start in the Veloso Cayman in second place, followed of course by the 2 TGR Caymans. Top 2 really kind of breaking away from the TGR Supras in the early stages of the race. And then there would be a safety car for this rather major incident between the Peugeot and Vitor Costa in his 997 Cup Porsche. Thankfully, both parties walked away, Michel Fernandez and Costa both commiserating, and significant damage to their cars, significant delay to the racing action as well. That delayed the pit window. Once we did go back to racing, it was once again the Porsche of Hendrik Still, the absolute Cayman specialist, pursuing Salvador. They would both serve their pit stops, of course, and there would be pit stop handicaps to consider. And unfortunately, for the Supra teams, just about all of them won or were up at the front yesterday. Therefore, they all had penalties. Therefore, Carlos Vieira was the driver that ultimately inherited the lead. They had just the base 2-minute pit stop with no handicap time to consider, and so it would be the all-white 888 Cayman that inherited the lead. Pit stop window also saw Bruno Perez hand over to Ricardo Costa, who had a bit of a scary sideways moment there in front of Orlando Bettina. In fact, that was the in-lap for Bruno Perez, just getting the last out of the tyres, I guess. But certainly drivers really pushing the limit around this infamously challenging and bravery rewarding circuit. With Hyundai Elantra TCR making up places in the hands of Teixeira, and then another safety car, unfortunately, would conclude the racing for the day. Vasco Oliveira making an error there on those curbs. So easy to do. Race ending under checkered flag. That won't be too much of an issue, though, for Carlos Vieira and Hendrik Still. They will be delighted to have taken the race victory. We've already spoken to a lot of our winners, so we are going to wrap up for today here at Villarreal. We thank you for watching along with us here in Iberian Supercars. Make sure you join us next time. We'll Valencia from the 25th to the 27th of September as we now head into the final stages of the 2026 season. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a fun run to the final checkered flags.